Estrella. Ooh. Let me stop singing. What is up, everybody? It's your boy Shazwiyt, and welcome back to another video. Thank you for joining me yet again, and thank you so much for your continued support. I really appreciate it. If you are clicking on me for the very first time, well, my name is Shasha, but for the sake of this channel, I go by the name of Shazwiyt, which is a combination of my first two names, Shasha and Mazwi, to make Shazwiyt. Okay. Please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and also turn on that post notification bell so that you get notified every time I upload a video. With that being said, let's get straight into today's content. Zoom. Let's go. So as you can tell by the title of today's video, I'm going to be doing an album review. I like to do something different, and I mentioned before in my first video that album reviews are going to be something that I will include as well. So I, like you guys, love music, and so I want to not only review albums that I like, but I want you guys to also request music for me to listen to, and I'll review that music as well. So if you want me to review something that you think I might like or that you enjoy, please be sure to link it down below, and I will for sure listen to that. I would prefer to listen to an album though, and not just review a song. But if you'd rather review a song, then that's cool too. But albums, I like more cohesive project type things. I hope everybody's doing good though. Today is Friday. I love Fridays. It's been a long week, but I'm happy it's over. But it's been a good week though. Being back, into the swing of things. But yeah, I've enjoyed it. So before I get into the content of this video, I've been told that my videos are too long, maybe too long by a friend or so. Here's the thing, I totally get that, and actually I've been thinking about it as well. I've been trying to make my videos shorter as well. It's just that I just have a lot of thoughts in my head, and I want to make sure that I get my point across fully and convey the message that I'm trying to convey. So if I try to cut down my videos or make them short to grab y'all's attention spans, well, that means I then start to curate myself and try to give off a facade that isn't really truly representative of me, which goes against the whole point of this channel, which is for you to get to know me, the real me, and what I'm all about. And if you're not up for that, you don't have to be here. You can click off and go and watch whatever other Ace Family or whatever other, silly YouTube videos you watch all day. But I know me. I know what I'm about. And if you're with me, be with me. If not, bye-bye. You do you, I'll do me. So, yeah, let's go. No, but I do understand though. I know it sucks to watch an hour-long video or 45-minute video all the time. No, I will genuinely try to make this video as concise as possible. I won't promise that it's going to be short, because each person has their own version of what short means or what long is. So I will say I will try to keep this video hopefully about a half an hour or less, which some people still think that is incredibly way too long, but it's an album review. And even though this is a short album, this album had so much impact and is, in my opinion, the greatest album of all time. So it's important to discuss its impact as well, so that you know how important this album is. Especially if you're someone who hasn't listened to Thriller. You need to listen to this album. It's incredible. I love it. So the reason why I chose to review this album is because there are a few reasons. First one being that this is actually the first ever album that I bought and owned. I bought this album in 2013. I was about 15 at the time. Yeah, I was 15. And I was in Johannesburg in South Africa. And I was there for a sports trip, and on the very last day, we went to the small called Centurion, and I went to this music store called Musica. I don't know if Musica is found in other countries, but it's a popular music store within South Africa. And so I went into Musica, and a world awaits. That's their slogan. Anyway, I went into Musica and I saw the pop section, and I saw like, all of these old albums and new ones, and I saw Thriller. It was right there, and it was the deluxe edition, which came out in 2001, which had like audio recordings and the Someone in the Dark song, which was for the soundtrack E.T. And I was like, why not? I really want to get this album because I love Michael Jackson. He's my favorite artist of all time, which is the other reason why I'm doing this review. And I bought the album. I got it, first ever album that I owned, and I'm so happy that I got it. I still listen to that album 6 years later on the daily. Well, not every single day, but I listen to it, every so often, like each week. And I still love it. It's still a bop. Even if it was released today, it would still be an incredible piece of work. It's a masterpiece. You know what I mean? I love Thriller. It's so good. So when I do album reviews, the first thing I like to do is go into the context of the album. And what I mean by the context of the album is I like to talk about what are the events that led to this album being put together in the first place. Because the reason why I want to talk about that context is that you need to understand what influenced the sounds the creators put in. What was the drama surrounding the album, if there was drama, or the events that were happening, so that for any of you who want to be musicians one day, or just all of us music lovers, we get to appreciate the artist more and not just the music itself, because it takes so much work and such a large group of people to put all of this graciousness and beautiful melodies and harmonies into our ears. You know what I mean? It's a lot of work, and we need to appreciate that. And so in regards to Thriller, so here's the tea. This is the context. Now, Thriller came out in the 80s. It came out in 1982, November of 1982 to be exact. And I think it was maybe November 30th when it came out, or November 9th. It was probably November 30th, around there. And but prior to that, 3 years before, in 1979, Michael Jackson released his solo album, Off the Wall. It wasn't a sophomore album. He released a few other solo albums before that, but none of them really hit the music market the way he wanted them to. They were just seen as like cute and sort of whimsical and all that stuff, but he wasn't really taken seriously as a solo artist, especially being that he came from being a member of probably at the time the biggest boy band in the world. You know what I mean? The Jackson 5, the Jacksons were really big, and so it was very hard for him to break out as a solo artist and to be labeled as just Michael Jackson and not MJ from the Jackson 5. He hated that. He didn't want to be associated with his brothers. And it wasn't from like a mean thing or he hated his family or anything. No, it's just that he wanted to be taken seriously as an artist, and he wanted people to know that he really has a message to say for himself, and he really has some really great stuff coming up. But you just can't keep thinking that he's this little kid, the little kid that you grew up with, that gave you ABC and 1, 2, 3 and all that stuff and Rockin' Robin. But of the solo albums he did do before, he did have one song that really did well called Ben. It was a #1 hit, but he was still very young at the time. He was only in his teens, so he still wouldn't have been taken seriously at the time. So coming back to 1979 when he released Off the Wall, which was, a really like cool disco funky album. The album performed well. It had a #1 hit, which was Don't Stop Till You Get Enough. As of now, it sold over 20 million copies worldwide. It did really well, even won a Grammy for like Best R&B Song. Now, MJ was disappointed with how the album performed. He didn't like how the album performed, and he thought it could have done way better. And so, at the time also, he was pretty miserable. He felt really lonely. And I think that was because he didn't have many friends. He didn't have a very active social life. For him, it was really mostly about the music. And I think having moved from Indiana to LA at such a really young age to start his music career, it really affected the way he grew up. So he was basically miserable at the time, is what I'm trying to say. And actually, according to my notes here, he told his new music manager called John Branca, who was, I guess, was a renowned talent agent or music manager at the time. He told him that he wanted to be the biggest and wealthiest star in show business. He wanted to be a big star. He was disappointed with how Off the Wall performed. And he also, feeling really lonely, wanted to produce more bigger music so that he could get his music out there and attract more people to his sound. I guess maybe in his mind he thought the more people knew about him, the less lonely he would feel. I'm not too sure. And so even Rolling Stone, which was already at that time a big magazine and still is, declined to do a cover story on him. And Michael Jackson responded to this by saying, "I've been told over and over that black people on magazine covers don't sell. Just wait. Someday those magazines are going to be begging for me to do an interview. Maybe I'll give them one, maybe I won't." So that's what he said. So he wanted Rolling Stone to do a cover story on him. I think he also wanted to talk about how, how is it being a solo artist when you were part of this big boy band. But Rolling Stone refused to do the cover on him because they were racist, because he was black. And also they just didn't feel like MJ was a really big enough artist to do an interview with anyway. But he sure showed them. He sure showed out. Little did he know he was going to become the greatest entertainer of all time. Just wait and see. And so all of these feelings that he had really encouraged him and pushed him and motivated him to create this new record. And so he went to Quincy Jones, who was the person that produced this album, legendary producer Quincy Jones, who produced Off the Wall. He came to him again and said, "Hey, I want to do a new album. Let's record something new." And Quincy was like, "Yeah, let's do it." So he got a team together and they started recording Thriller. And so Thriller, having come out in the 80s, during this time in the 80s, there was, how like each decade comes with a different trend. So in the 90s, it was like, more relaxed fashion and jeans and all that stuff. And it was about like, there was Clueless and there was, R&B and all of this like different trends, whatever it is. So in the 80s, especially in the early 80s and like late 70s, sci-fi films and horror films and thrillers were the most popular kinds of films or TV shows that were around. People were really into scary stuff. They were really into Halloween. They were really into all that stuff. It was like the biggest thing. And you had films like The Thing that came out, E.T., Alien, all of these sci-fi, cool technology, scary kind of movies were coming out. And those were the popular things. Those are the films that were dominating the box office and were on people's minds. So MJ, being the smart person that he was, decided to market off of that. And he said, okay, let me make an album that is very much related to the trends of today and what people are into today. And then so I decided to call the album Thriller and give it a vibe that was dark and twisted, but also fun and funky, because he still wanted to make it a fun pop album, but also at the same time he wanted the album to have a cohesive theme. And that's what he put together. And I think that's why the album ended up doing so well and becoming the best-selling album, not only at that time but ever, because he really listened and paid attention to the social pulse about what was going on and made an album based off of that. And also the genres that are found on Thriller are pop, obviously. I would regard Thriller as the first modern pop album. You also have post-disco, you have rock and funk music, and those are the kind of genres you hear throughout the album. So he was really experimenting with a lot of different things, because this was the early 80s, new genres of music coming out, pop music, especially electro pop, was really coming out, and all of this stuff. So he was one of the first artists to really benefit from this new wave of music, this new movement, because he just came from the 70s where disco was the thing. That trend stopped, it's now, getting out of style. So now pop is becoming the thing. And so MJ really set the precedent for pop music as it is today. If it wasn't for MJ, we wouldn't have the sounds of Madonna. We wouldn't have even Prince, cause MJ really was Well, Prince is arguable, but Madonna, no. Taylor Swift, Ariana Grande, Justin Bieber, all of that pop music, like it started with MJ. And even R&B music too, the whole, because MJ started the whole thing of like being sexy and grinding up and, you know, telling God that I'm gonna come to you tonight and be like, hey, you know, he was the first artist, especially like black artists. He really started that whole thing of being really sexy and you know, and having that soothing voice in his music and dancing to women and stuff. And sooner, you know, you would have like boy bands like Boys to Men or what's that one? New Edition. You would have Usher, Trey Songz, Chris Brown. He started that. You know, MJ was really the first artist, not just black artist, but first artist to really be that whole smooth and sexy sort of, you know, bring that vibe to music. So in terms of pop and R&B, he was it. He really started that off. So I really just wanted to take time to really emphasize that context and just how important this album was to pop culture. And also, the Thriller music video is actually the only video to ever be in the National Film Registry, which is basically the list of the best movies of all time. That's, you know, in the US and all that stuff, and I guess arguably in the world as well. And so Thriller is actually the only music video to be inducted into this prestigious registry. That just really shows how much influence this album had. I mean, like, come on. And so with that being said, let's do a quick review of the achievements that this album gained. For those of you that aren't aware, I'm just gonna run down and tell you just some of the achievements that this album got, how many #1 hits, all that stuff. So this album was actually #1 for 37 weeks, which is the most weeks at #1 for an album ever, especially in Billboard history. There is one soundtrack that came out years before, which was #1 for 54 weeks, but those records weren't really recorded. Billboard didn't exist yet, so it doesn't count. It was also in the top 10 for 80 weeks. So literally for like a year and a half, this album was still being played and was still #1 being popular. And and when it first came out, it was selling like 1 million a week, doing so well. So yeah, it was a big thing. It was the first ever album to have 7 top 10 singles. You know, it had so many top 10s. This album only has 9 tracks, and 7 of those tracks are top 10 hits. That's literally almost an entire album of hits. And the last 2 hits, like Baby Be Mine and Lady in My Life, could have been top 10 hits too. He just didn't release them as singles. So literally the album could have literally been in the top 10. That's insane. Like no other album has like done that. They have been albums that have had as many top 10 singles as that, or a bit more, but not to the extent of Thriller, whereby literally almost the entire album charted. That has never been done before. So obviously it's the best-selling album. It literally won 8 Grammys in 1 year. Other than MJ, the only other person or people that has done that is this Latin band from LA called Santana. I don't know if they're from LA. Well, it's a Latin band from the US called Santana. It got perfect reviews. It got 5 out of 5s and A's on Rolling Stone, on all these other music review places, and it's, you know, yeah, it's legit. Time magazine even wrote that Jackson is the biggest thing since the Beatles, hottest single phenomenon since Elvis. He just may be the most popular black singer ever. That was what was written about him at the time. So can you believe being only 24 years old and people are already comparing you to Stevie Wonder, to Elvis Presley, to the Beatles, literally comparing you to every great band or artist out there? It's a huge thing. And about 10 years later, at only the age of like 35 or something, he would receive the Grammy Legend Award, where only like 14 artists have ever garnered that. It's like the most prestigious music award like ever. Not the Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award, he already got that. He got the Legend Award. The Legend Award. And he was still going in his career. Like this dude just... The 80s, Michael Jackson dominated the 80s. Like... Anyway guys, as I said, I have a lot of thoughts. Don't want to make this too long. But I just really want to emphasize to you guys how important this album was for pop culture. If this gets too long, I'll split the video into like a part 1 and 2. But yeah, I just love to that. I love the MJ. I'm a huge fan. I'm a moonwalker, certified moonwalker.